Hello there. So, this country would have been the fourth country in the world to land a spacecraft on the moon, but that attempt didn't quite go according to plan. Keep watching and all will be revealed just before the end of this video. Welcome to my channel. My name is Sotonye Afiesimana, and as you can see on your screen, this is Today in History. Let's roll back the curtain, as I always say, to the year 1587. On this day, a man called Sir Walter Raleigh, an Englishman, arrives in an island called Roanoke. It's off the coast of what's called North Carolina today in the United States of America. So there had been a previous colony on the island, but that vanished, and Sir Walter Raleigh was hoping that this second colony will flourish. But 3 years later, relief ships will find it completely deserted, and the lost colony of Roanoke will become a haunting mystery. Now, Sir Walter Raleigh arrives here, and that tree there, as you can see, the inscription Quatone is written on the tree. He thought that these people, these initial hundreds of English people who had come to this island, had decided to move to another island which has its name inscribed on the tree. They went there. These people were not there. So they went there. The people they were looking for, their countrymen, were nowhere to be seen. So who knows what happened? Did they get killed by the Indians? Was it disease that wiped them out? They moved further north into Canada. There was no evidence of anything, bodies were not found. So it remains a mystery till this day. Anyway, Sir Walter Raleigh had the city of Raleigh named after him after his death, so posthumously. So that's where Raleigh gets his name from, the capital of North Carolina. Let's move on to the year 1793. Alexander Mackenzie, a Scotsman, another man from the United Kingdom. He finishes a North American cross-continental trip, in which will be Canada. So this place he went to was eventually called Canada. He is credited to laying the groundwork for Britain's settlement of Canada and future continent-spanning expeditions further south. So further south will be United States of America and possibly South America as well. Okay, so that's Sir Alexander Mackenzie, who got to North America on this day in 1793. He was only 29. 1812, on this day, the Duke of Wellington, pictured here, apparently defeated 40,000 Frenchmen in 40 minutes. I'm not sure how possible that is, but that's what the account says. And this happened in Salamanca, Spain during the Peninsular War. He was a former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, and his name was Arthur Wellesley. And he was also not just a Duke, but the first Duke of Wellington. He was Anglo-Irish, a soldier, obviously, a Tory statesman, and was one of the leading military and political figures of the 19th century in Britain. He served twice as Prime Minister and ended the Napoleonic Wars when he defeated Napoleon at the Battle of Waterloo in 1815. Let's move on to the year 1861. And on this day, President Lincoln reads the first draft of Emancipation Proclamation to his cabinet. So the men pictured here and the woman presumably members of his cabinet. So he reads this proclamation. The 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution was a long and contested legal battle between Union President Abraham Lincoln, who's pictured with a pen, and the Confederate States that resisted freeing slaves and officially abolishing slavery. So I did mention this in one of my videos where I talked about Juneteenth and how African Americans were officially freed in Texas. This proclamation was made in Galveston, Texas. So if you check out my one of my videos, I will put a link here eventually on this video. Maybe not immediately, not likely immediately, but eventually there will be a link pointing you to that video so you can watch it as well. Okay, so that's a painting to commemorate that event on this day, the draft of Emancipation Proclamation to the cabinet. We move on to the year 1923, and we're in a country called Nigeria, and this man is Chief Anthony Erumosele Inahoro. He was Nigeria's foremost anti-colonial and pro-democracy activist. He was born in a place called Uromi, educated at government school in Uromi, and also government school Owo, eventually finishing at King's College, Lagos. Inahoro became the editor of Nnamdi Azikiwe's newspaper. Now, Nnamdi Azikiwe was Nigeria's first president. He was of the Igbo tribe. Now, the Southern Nigerian Defender was the newspaper that Chief Inahoro edited, and he did that in 1944 at the age of 21, and that put him in the records as the youngest ever editor in Nigeria. 1939, on this day, this beautiful lady called Jane Matilda Boleyn was sworn in at the age of 31 in 1939 by New York City Mayor Fiorello LaGuardia. The airport in New York was named after him. She was a woman of firsts. So this was not the first major achievement for Boleyn. Okay, so she was female judge in the United States, the first African-American female judge in the United States. That's the first. The second one was that she was the first African-American female to graduate from Yale Law School in 1931. She was the only African-American and one of only 3 women in her Yale Law School class. As the third first, Boleyn worked as a judge in what is referred to as family court for 4 decades until January of 1979, after reaching the mandatory retirement age of 70. Judge Boleyn was born on the 11th of April in Poughkeepsie, New York, and died on the 8th of January 2007 in Long Island City, Queens, New York, at the age of 98. So she lived a long, hopefully fulfilled life. 1923, on this day, American baseball player Walter Johnson became first pitcher in the Major League Baseball to strike out 3,000 batters. His career record of 3,508 strikeouts stood until 1983. Wow. 60 years. 60 years. That must have been a very, very, very talented baseball player. Let's move on to the year 1974. And we moved to a country in Africa, South Africa. And as you can see from this picture, most of the people here are mixed race or mixed race looking. Now, they have a special name in South Africa. They're called coloureds. And during apartheid, the term coloured was used to refer to people of generally mixed race origin. Okay? And then throughout the course of South African history, they have been regarded as neither white nor black. So on this day, the full citizenship of colored people is called for. The year was 1974. Now, the story goes that their ability to exercise their political rights were dependent on the attitude of the government at the time. So essentially, it was just at the whim of the ruling party of the time. Under the government of the Union, coloreds had similar rights to whites. Okay? But by 1930, their political rights were restricted to the election of white representatives. So they couldn't elect people that looked like them. They elected white representatives. Okay? Which was quite horrendous. You're forced to elect people who may not necessarily share your ideology. Just because they were ruling the country, you had to elect them into office, because they were the ruling party, but you couldn't be elected. That's a definition of injustice. But I'm glad that that's not the case today. South Africa has moved way past this. Okay, their political rights were restricted to the election of white representatives. I mentioned that earlier. So the National Party victory in 1948 saw coloureds completely disenfranchised, with their final removal from the voters' roll in 1956. Like I said earlier, thankfully, all that has changed. All that hopefully has been relegated to the annals of history permanently. On this day in 2011, terrorist attacks on Oslo and the island of Utøya in Norway resulted in the deaths of 77 people. The person who was responsible for this was a man called Anders Behring Breivik. He confessed to the attacks, and obviously it's a sad day for the families of those who lost their lives on this day. They're going to be thinking about their loved ones today, and our hearts go out to them. Let's move on 2 years later. The year is 2013, I beg your pardon. And this young dude was born on this day. His name is Prince George Alexander Louis of Cambridge. And if you guessed it right, he is the son of Prince William, Duke of Cambridge, and Catherine, Duchess of Cambridge. He was born in London on this day. Move on to the year 2005. Sadly, Jean Charles de Menezes was shot dead. Now, I did shoot a video yesterday about how there was a second attempt to bomb London, and the 3 bombs did not failed to explode. Okay, now this guy was suspected to be one of the guys who tried to bomb London on the 21st of July. He was mistaken, obviously. They mentioned that already. And he was shot dead. He was challenged by the police, given instructions which he didn't adhere to. And so that heightened the suspicion of the police. And he was shot, fatally shot, unfortunately. And the rest, as I say, is history. There were protests, obviously, in the United Kingdom and in Brazil, where he comes from. So another sad day for this family. They're going to be thinking about their loved one, John Charles de Menezes, today. Our hearts go out to his family on this day. 2012, 7 years later, Pranab Mukherjee, pictured here, is elected 13th President of India. He ruled from 2012 until 2017, so for 5 years he was president, and his political career spanned 5 decades. He has been a senior leader in the Indian National Congress and has occupied several ministerial portfolios in the government of India. Prior to his election as president, Mukherjee was Union Finance Minister from 2009 to 2012. He was awarded India's highest civilian honor, the Bharat Ratna, in 2019 by the President of India, Ram Nath Kovind. So that's Pranab Mukherjee, President Pranab Mukherjee, elected 13th President of India on this day in 2012. 7 years later, still in India, I mentioned this at the beginning of this video, so all will be revealed now. So what happened was, the country was India. They tried to land a spacecraft on the southern pole, or the south pole of the moon. So the Earth has a North Pole and a South Pole, and so does the moon. So this is a diagram of essentially what the plan was. So you can see that the scientific goal was to understand moon's origin and evolution, map moon's minerals and polar region, confirm evidence of water ice, study topsoil and atmosphere. So scientific goal. Technological goal: become 4th nation to soft land on moon after US, USSR and China. So that's the answer to the question which I raised earlier. But this did not succeed because they lost signal just before the module landed. It's called the Vikram lander, and they lost signal, lost contact with the craft, and that didn't happen. And this was the second attempt. There is going to be a third attempt this year. Presumably it should have happened already, or it's going to happen in the next few days, because July, 3rd week of July seems to be the most favorable time of the year to send spacecrafts into outer space. So let's move on to the year 2020. This happened just a few hours ago, so essentially this is breaking news. For the first time in 30 years, Liverpool Football Club are champions of the English Premier League. So congratulations, Liverpool, 2019 to 2020 Premier League winners. You guys have come a long way. 30 years is a long time to wait for this. 30 years, long time. So congratulations to Jurgen Klopp and his team for making Liverpoolians proud and Liverpool fans all over the world. Okay, so on that cheery note, we end today's edition of Today in History. Give me a thumbs up if you like this video, and consider subscribing as well so that you receive updates of my video uploads. Thanks again, guys, and I shall see you tomorrow for another edition of Today in History. Stay safe, guys, and I shall see you tomorrow. Bye-bye. I don't want to.